Diane, can you hear us?
Yep.
She's thinking about it.
Talk about a lag.
Well, look who's here, Mr. McKeever. How are you, young fella? We're doing all right, thanks. Looking up, taking nourishment.
Yes.
Ed, did you give me a yes or a no for LCATs next week?
I had given you a yes.
Okay, couldn't remember.
Yes.
And the meetings for Knolt Road.
Pardon?
Regarding the meetings for Knolt Road, I'm assuming you're a no. Or would you like to?
I am a no. Yes, thank you. I had to get in the right file.
Just want to make sure.
Now, I need to retain my posture on that.
Yep.
Until called upon.
Mhm. Yeah,
I noticed you suggested something along those lines,
I did.
and I'm ready
Okay,
to respond.
hopefully you won't have to.
Yeah, preferably best not.
Zoom.
Oh,
No.
turned up the wireless mics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I like being named the meeting room.
The problem is the meeting room is named you.
Am I on?
I am.
No,
Okay, I'll just make sure.
no. Hello. And what Andy said is
I'll
true.
be there to support you.
Okay. Sounds good. And did you tell me yes or no on Hellcats?
And that's Yoder's in New Holland. Probably not, but I'll send you a note tonight.
Okay.
Okay, when I get home and look at my schedule.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
The street in front of Lidle and the bridge. That's part of the traffic commission.
No, we talked about it. Do you want me to put anything up? I wasn't
Would be
planning.
helpful if you had that.
I didn't know if you had included the ones that, the pictures I had sent.
With the little red?
Right.
Yes, I did include
have-
those.
I have
Okay,
those.
that's in.
Yeah.
I'll
That's in their
scan.
packet.
Okay, maybe if we just have the Google handy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, I recognized you.
Hmm. And I think they go in and get out. We just talk to them. They basically live there. I think my dad was extra points to get to his room up and has, because he's had so much time fixing the church up. He's gotta have a good view. I think you're right. Yeah, he's gonna get it up for you. Yeah. I say it like it goes. All right, I'm moving it back.
You'll have some work to do for sure.
I know.
Your dad will be.
My dad will, I'll just ride his coattails. Name drop. So that St. Peter at the gate, I'll just say, hey, you know my dad. Yeah, I'm a style.
I can't get this up. I cleaned up a whole bunch of stuff back into March.
Your email's not working for some reason. Put in your password again. Trying to connect. Cross your fingers. Connecting. Oh, there they are.
Yeah, what'd you do?
Just hit that little connect.
Oh, okay.
I thought maybe you had to put it in, but it took it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
What we know is it's our people. It's the neighbors. It's not any outsiders. Nobody comes into that. Yeah, they don't belong.
Why? Looking at the report, there's twice as many cars go west than east. Did you go down and turn in it?
There we go.
Maybe go that way and then leave,
Those people turn in it over the boat and fries.
and then they just go.
And they go up. Andy said he's on his way.
Okay. Just gonna text you.
So they go up Ridgeview to Cornell, and they go down Cornell, and then go up.
So when you're leaving, you go leave.
And
Evening, young fella.
Okay.
We're told Andy's on his way.
Okay. Well, we got a bunch of stuff. Looks like we have some folks here by Zoom.
Yep.
Well, now my page isn't responding with the links. Or actually with tonight's agenda, that's what it's not responding with. There's Andy. I don't really need it, but it might be helpful.
Weird. That-
How are you?
Doing, buddy?
You masking or not? I guess we're supposed to still, huh?
Supposed to mask, yeah, I guess. You got your shots?
Gotta put a crank on the-
Yeah, were you?
File the 3 more pages.
Not doing it for the time being.
Okay, well, we get started. We'll let it,
Maybe it'll warm up.
yeah, maybe it'll
It's the
warm
main
up.
event.
Hmm.
Get any side effects?
Hmm?
I
Mrs.
didn't have any
Garber,
side
are
effects
we
on
ready?
the first one, but I don't know if the second one's any better.
We're ready. Okay.
I went to Park City.
Which vaccine?
Oh, I think it's Pfizer.
Pfizer?
maybe?
That's what I got, yeah.
Pfizer.
Call this meeting of the April 21st, 2021 East Hempfield Township Traffic Commission to order. Please join me in a moment of silence and a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On our agenda, we have action items including approval of the minutes from our last meeting on March the 17th. Are there any comments to those minutes as prepared? None, shaking
None.
heads and
I have none.
none, okay. I would look for a motion then to accept them.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Bennett and a second from Mr. Weaver. All those in favor say aye. Aye. 3-0. Thank you. Now we have the state road traffic signage plan. And it looked good on my home monitor. It caused me to think maybe the township should get the supervisors a 72-inch monitor that we could have at home. And then we could project these documents in a way that we might be able to peruse them in advance. However, seriously, what I see is very comprehensive detail addressing all the ramifications of that new section of State Road. And I don't know if there's anything that could be brought to our attention that we should particularly note or not, or just rely on the professionalism of the preparer. I saw a nod to the
Well,
affirmative on that one.
I skimmed through them and I realized that even if I spent hours on this, I would still probably not understand what we're looking at. So I think I would trust the designer and whoever reviewed it.
Well, we were given all the tangent coordinates of putting in the new road and all those details, which chances are there's an error in there, but they'll find that in the doing. Not too serious. Mr. Bennett, any thoughts?
plan has been reviewed by our traffic.
Pardon?
The plan has the plan been reviewed by our traffic engineer?
It has,
Okay.
Chris
and-
Bauer.
And he doesn't see any issues or hasn't brought any issues forward?
None that have not been addressed.
How about our chief of police? Chief, that,
He has not looked at the signs, but the public works director has.
okay, then how about I direct that question to Perry? Is Perry here?
Perry's on.
Yes, I am. I did go out today and all the signs were installed today. As per the plan, everything looks good.
Okay.
Okay, then I would believe it would be appropriate for us to have a motion of acceptance. Is there a motion
So moved.
so moved from Mr. Weaver? Is there a second?
Second?
Second from Mr. Bennett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. I had suggested as an aside to Mrs. Schweitzer that there might be sort of a ribbon cutting or something tomorrow morning. I envision Mrs. Schweitzer and Mrs. Garber and Mr. Kutzmeyer and John and a parade of township vehicles going through there after a ribbon cutting. But I don't know, I'm not getting much traction on that, so I guess it'll have to be postponed. Now, this is just the binder course
This is just the binder.
with all the line striping on it.
Yes.
And that's not cheap to do that line striping much. So,
We did have a conversation with the developer and he just felt that it really looks unfinished right now because of everything going on. So we'll hopefully delay that and do something more prominent when the interchange opens up.
yeah, that would be kind of nice. Then maybe we could get some positive coverage in our local media.
The plan is that the roadway will be open after rush hour on Thursday evening.
On Thursday evening,
Mhm.
okay, okay.
They need to get their barricades down, they need to get some barricades up, some signage.
I was tempted to run the barricades tonight, but I thought better of it, so very anxious to get going there.
So if you want us to show up around 6 o'clock tomorrow night,
One additional question, if I may. Will the lights be operational at the hospital entrance area?
we had that discussion, Craig Malat's on the line. I think the consensus was that it's going to be flashing because it has to flash for a certain period of time for PennDOT's purposes.
Yes, Cindy, this is Craig Mott. That's true. We think that's true. The one unique aspect of this is it's a brand new road. So normally when brand new signals are turned on, they require that they flash for 3 days. But since this is a brand new section of road, it's possible PennDOT may allow it to go stop and go right away. We'll find out. We've got a meeting with PennDOT tomorrow. I believe it's at 9 a.m. or we'll figure that part out.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay. We may now go to old business. And we have the Shank Road stop sign placement. And we have some input from our chief of police, Chief Skiles. You
Don't
have the-
move that.
You have the floor.
It's in the exact spot it needs to stay at.
Causing trouble.
So I'm going to be up here for a little while because I think that we have 4 different things, but Shank Road, I think Shank Road is going to be one of those areas where we try to fix a problem and then we create a problem and then we fix it again. So the situation at Shank Road right now, if you recall, we recently removed the stop sign for traffic coming into the township from Raffo Township because the sign was in a bad spot. It was hard to see and a lot of people were going through the stop sign. And then what we did was replace it with stop signs that controlled Shank Road. I guess it would be north and south. We moved the stop lines closer to the bridge about 2 weeks ago. We being Perry, moved them closer to the bridge so that you could actually see. But we've gotten complaints and officer feedback that if you're stopped at either of those stop signs, because of the foliage that's growing on the trees, you can't see vehicles coming from Raffo Township. So the cars are legally stopping at both stop signs and then heading towards Raffo Township, but you can't see if there's a car coming into the bridge. To complicate that, there are no yield signs on either side of the bridge, on our side or the Raffo side. And the traffic coming into the bridge from Raffo Township is 40 mile an hour. So typically nobody's doing 40 mile an hour into the bridge, but that's what the limit is.
Because he moved the podium. It's his fault.
Okay. So that's what we had now. I reached out to the police chief and ultimately the township manager for RAFO, Cindy, and manager and two police chiefs have kind of gone back and forth on email. And I think we're all in agreement that they want their traffic engineer to look at it. Ours is already looking at it. I don't know how that will work. I kind of push that off on Cindy. Doesn't make sense to have two engineers doing the same thing. I think that they want to restrict trucks at some level, and our engineers are already talking about restricting certain axle sizes. So they're working on that, and then possibly putting yield signs on both sides of the bridge. As it stands right now, if a vehicle is coming from Hempfield Township into the bridge, and a car stops at the stop sign on our side of the bridge, and then moves into the intersection, and they crash on the inside of the bridge, nobody's really at fault because the stop sign controlled the traffic. They entered the roadway. It was safe to do so. And there's no yield signs in either way. So we're trying to fix it. But I think we're going to need a little help from the engineers.
I had a couple thoughts as I read that, and I've used it twice since the stop signs have been changed.
Just switching.
If you're coming from the more westerly direction, you can kind of see the RAFO roadway and see if someone's coming. But the other way, obviously, absolutely you cannot. I did think that possibly some rumble strips, though they're usually not very popular, might be of advantage. Also, if we do the three-way stop, I think it would make sense, even though there's a sloping down, if we could paint the stop sign on the roadway, that might work, or suspend one from the bridge structure or that steel thing that's there. I think there's some things we can do that'll help this. Yield signs definitely, I believe, would be beneficial.
So I don't know if you all have to make it. I don't think there's any motions for you. I think it's just today that know that our engineer and their engineer, I believe, are going to need to have a conversation and see what the best plan is to move forward.
I believe this can be placed on a recurring agenda for a while, and we watch it and see what we get. Any other comments from the commission or thoughts?
If I may, is there any way that we could put a, some type of an indicator on that the bridge is occupied that would show on the Hempfield side of the bridge, just like a caution light or a red light?
I don't know. There might be an engineer in the room.
Well, he's still sleeping back there. So.
Perry, Tom was asking if there was some sort of light or sign or something to indicate if there's a car approaching from East Hempfield on the bridge. And from what he's describing, I'm thinking maybe some sort of pressure sensitive sign or light. Is there anything that could be done with the covered bridge?
I've never seen one on a covered bridge. I've actually seen a traffic signal that has controlled a bridge like that. I don't know if you've ever seen when you're coming like over a hill, you'll see a signal that says red signal ahead. It's, again, I've never seen anything just to warn you that a car is, that way. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but like I said, I have seen where there was a traffic signal that actually controlled stopping people, on the RAFO side that would allow the people on the East Hempfield side to go through. But again, there you're looking at some, two municipalities working on a traffic signal and the money that it would involve installing something like that. But I've never seen anything that just allows, says bridge occupied or something like that.
Well, I mean, a stoplight would be an option in my mind, but I would let that to the traffic engineer to figure out.
I can kind of tell you that there's not enough traffic to warrant a signal as far as volume goes. Now, there's not been any accidents there either, so I don't know what the justification would be.
I think if we put any more stop signs or signs on that bridge, it might just collapse. Already.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, we'll just look at that again next month and see what we can update. Thank you. So then we go to new business and we have a state road temporary reduced speed from 35 mile an hour to 25 mile an hour due to construction zone activity. Chief?
I think this has been worked out.
I think it probably takes action of the traffic commission to at least temporarily reduce it to 25 miles per hour because of the work zone. There is a question if it's really enforceable, but I think it's a good thing to put the signage up because it is a new roadway, it's a new traffic pattern.
The speed limit on that part of the road is 35 mile an hour as per the vehicle code. But because of the ongoing construction, the new patterns, it's just a primary code of asphalt. I would agree that it's probably wise to make it 30 or 25. And there is a provision that allows it because it's a construction zone. So I don't know if the commission needs to make a motion to temporarily reduce that, or if the signage that they're going to put up as part of their construction may suffice as well.
Well, maybe it's belt and suspenders, but let's have a motion and just, then we've made it official. So we have a comment from the audience.
Is it going to be, an active traffic zone?
Active?
Traffic zone, is it going to be basically the road work ahead sign?
Yes. Well, and that's why I think Perry can probably answer that. I think that they're going to be, if they didn't already, posting the active construction zone.
If it's going to be maintained as an active construction zone, it's not a motion at this board. It needs to be a seal with the engineer for that traffic. And it's enforceable.
You know if that's the case, Perry?
I really couldn't hear him speak, but I kind of thought I knew what he was going after. These are not like active construction signs that they were asking for, Scott. They were looking at just lowering the speed limit signs. No, no flashing white light on top of the active work zone light, because really there is no work zone there in the street itself. It is off to the side through that portion of State Road. Now, the active portion would be up at Yellow Goose where, where actually there is still construction in the right of way and in the street.
Perry,
So what I was able to determine in the vehicle code under section 3363 is that the maximum speed limit can be altered if the Board of Supervisors believes that 35 miles an hour is not reasonable and safe under the current conditions. But it also says an engineering and traffic investigation must be performed. But I'm not sure what investigation or conditions that they would note since the road's not opened. I mean, it will be tomorrow, but it's not open now.
I did see something about the developer could put up construction zone signs. I thought we saw that in our packet. There are three options. One of them was that it could be signed as a construction zone.
Yeah, that's what Mr. Russell was
Right.
referring to.
And that would
that
come from,
I guess the construction's not on the actual road, it's in the properties adjacent to the road.
If I could, Scott Russell, if you sign it as work in the shoulder, which is what you're talking about, it's out off the roadway into the site, you could put that up as a long-term traffic control, and then that's your justification, so Mr. Weaver said, for 25 miles per hour, as long as those signs are up, you have the 25 miles per hour, that's your information. So if we get a TPD, prepare a very basic traffic control plan that just shows long-term traffic control, we can call it without staring fingers, and you just call it out along there, you can do the 25 mile per hour posting. And it's enforceable.
The other question that comes to mind, how long are we talking about the reduction in speed?
Assume until the
Hospital.
final coats.
Yeah, that was the intent, was until the final wearing code is on.
Not till the construction is completely over.
No,
Oh,
it's
that's-
really just precautionary, but we don't have to do it.
Yeah, then it's.
We
fine.
also have the traffic signal in the middle of the roadway too, that's going to control traffic speed.
Because there's still a lot of traffic coming in and out the site on the roadways and that kind of.
It's diminished somewhat because most of the materials are on site for the hospital. And the Sheets project is actually accessing from Harrisburg Pike. So it's minimal at best.
Another sign might be caution construction vehicles entering and exiting, or words to that effect, that any logical person will be a little careful of those vehicles.
And the police department is not looking at this as a means of prosecution.
Mm-mm.
It's just a safety issue.
Mhm.
So I don't know what it would take to just put the signs up. I mean, they have to be authorized by the Board of Supervisors for them to be enforceable. But if they're posted, then they're more cautionary. Coming into this meeting, I was under the assumption that the project was going to place the construction signs as an advisory. Is that not the case anymore?
Craig, you're still on the line. You're planning on removing all of your construction signage.
I was there tonight and I didn't see any.
I believe they pulled them all.
Sorry, Cindy, I was muted there. Yeah, I think there's still going to be there's still going to be barrels in place just because of the through lane transition issue. Where, what Scott, I believe, I have having a hard time hearing him. I think what we could do, if the township desires, is we can still have some construction signing out there and establish a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit while the site's still under construction. And technically, it's still going to be under construction until all of the work is open, all of the through lanes are open and accessible. And then also keep in mind that ultimately the overlay on state roads is going to have to happen as well. And I think you would potentially would want to reduce speed limit while they're doing the overlay work at that time. So if the township wants it, I think what we could do is work with your traffic engineer to come up with a plan that meets PennDOT requirements for traffic control. And then that would allow you to do just a temporary reduced speed limit while the traffic control devices are in place.
That seems like the cleanest option. And what's the status on the east side? I mean, you're gonna have construction vehicles in that,
They're
on that
accessing,
site.
they're accessing from Harrisburg Pike,
Oh,
the
okay.
old roadway for State Road, old State Road.
I'd still be in favor of that option, I think, with the construction signs.
Cindy, if it's this commission's desire, we can reach out to Chris and come up with something.
Is that the desire of the commission?
Yes, my desire.
Reach out to,
Chris Bauer, our engineer, traffic engineer.
okay, Chris Bauer.
They'll coordinate and get what's necessary to make those legal.
Well, in that case, due to the timingness of this, I don't want to wait another month, of course. So I'd like if the commission would empower staff to manage this the best way to result in safe travel as much as possible on that portion of State Road until it is deemed no longer necessary. Is that satisfactory? Okay, I think we'll let that go then. I think I'll share this in the supervisor meeting just for information so that Mr. Wigglesworth at least knows what we're considering. Okay, next item is Embassy Drive. Again, we have a speed limit question, and Chief, you're standing by, I see.
This is more informational. I don't know that we need to take action on it tonight. Might want to ponder it a bit. But Embassy Drive, the new section, where PDQ, if you can picture the new section between Georgetown Road and Running Pump Road. The speed limit's posted at 25 miles an hour. We get a significant number of complaints about speeding. And we've been doing speed enforcement details over the last probably 2 months. And the officers have noticed that they could write speeding tickets all day long. The average speeds down there are in the 40s. We don't start writing tickets until 45 because we just don't have enough officers to keep writing tickets. So the officers started questioning whether or not that was the appropriate speed limit and how it was determined. So I don't know if it's because of the conditions with somewhat of a curve and the number of driveways that are there, but there's an online tool that Sergeant Lombardo used, and he inserted the 85th percentile speed and some of the other factors. and it showed that the recommended speed limit should be 40. So I don't know why it was set at 25. There may be a legitimate engineering reason. I don't know if I can get an answer on that, if it's something that we want to keep at 25, but just know that we're going to get continued complaints. And we go down there. I think we wrote 30 tickets in about 3 hours the other day. And that was starting at 45. We had cars that were going in the 50s and 60, which is extreme. It's way too fast, but the average car is doing 40 mile an hour through there.
Have we had any incidents?
We haven't had any crashes. Again, it's complaint based, and we're just following up on the complaints. But if the speed limit's too low, maybe it can be increased if there's a reason for it, and it's a solid engineering reason. Maybe that falls back on the developer. I don't know if, John, were you ever able to determine from the initial plans?
No, I couldn't find anything in the study or anything like that.
Well, again, there's a possibility that someone thought there's going to be development along that road for a couple of years, and during that period of time, it should be reduced speed, but now that construction is basically complete. And so it would seem to me that changing it to 35 would be appropriate. So then you're covered up to 45 and you should have fewer citations.
So if you want to visit it, then the staff would need authorization to do a speed study there. We could do that and then come back at the next meeting with the results of that study.
Before we before we go to that step, I was thinking the same thing for Knoll Drive, which I know we have an elementary school there with a 15-mile-per-hour school zone, but all summer long and evenings and weekends, it's basically the same situation where, I find myself having to back off because I'm doing 35 and 40 through there. Hate to admit it, but I think both of those roads might benefit from the same approach, other than with the school zone.
What are they on the east side of Rohrstown Road?
That's a good question.
I don't know if they're even posted.
I don't know. You might be able to see it on Google there in about a minute as he travels down the path.
He's only going 25.
I know Knoll is 25 on the west side also of Rohrstown.
Don't forget to stop at the light.
I gotta watch for people crossing the road.
I'm not necessarily advocating for a higher speed limit, but I want to make you aware that, the way a lot of our enforcement is complaint driven. And I don't want the officers to be viewed as over policing an area or just trying to write tickets, because like I said, you could sit there all day.
But we don't have a safety
That's not
issue on this
posted.
road. I mean, it's a long, straight road.
I'm not aware of any crashes that we've
Right.
had there.
So
It doesn't feel like a 25-mile-per-hour road.
It's a straight road. It has plenty of visibility. There's clear stopping distances, it seems, in place for all of the driveway cuts. So yes, why don't we do a speed study until May and see? And also, I think we should be consistent on both east and west sides of Rohrstown Road.
Anything I would add for that one is on the east and west side where we're right, you need to look at the characteristics of the streets. And Embassy Drive is a different roadway across the road than it is for
Yeah, it has a curve in it there with that Ambassador's Loop and whatever.
There's a lot more driveway access on the other across Road, and parking and stuff that makes it a different, plus the curves, all those things factor in.
Yeah, and I remember about 2 years ago, we added no parking signs on the east side of Embassy because of the curves and the number of driveways. So I would agree that.
Well, people were parking there to go to that treatment center.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, the east side is not quite the same situation.
There are more driveway cuts. I agree. Okay, so the resolution there is to do some studies and have some data and then be able to make a conscious decision. The next item we have is the Lido Good Drive right turn lane. And I can envision the problem there.
I think we have a picture, if it's in your, is it in your packet? We took some pictures of the actual condition there. Was that in that packet, Cindy?
It is.
No, there aren't any. I didn't see them.
No?
No, but I know the situation and I can see how it's a problem.
And I think there might be people here that may want to address that too.
Ah,
But
okay.
the complaint, as I understand it, and I've observed it, Lieutenant Brubaker's observed it. And I went out this past week twice and saw the same thing that the residents are seeing, is there's a right turn in lane that goes into the Lidl parking lot. And it's just striped on the street. Oh, there it is. So this is going westbound. The little orange things are my drawings. So those don't exist. The only thing that keeps you from going straight and making your right turn on the good. All right. I don't know that I can do that. So the complaints that we've gotten and that we've seen will be cars will stay in the Lidl right-hand turn lane and they will go straight through to make a right-hand turn onto Good. And what happens is the cars that are sitting to go straight on Good or straight on Columbia Avenue that want to make a right turn will wait until they pass Lidl to get into the right-hand lane. Now, we haven't had crashes. I don't know that we have any. So I don't think it's an extreme danger because it's been this way for close to a year and we haven't had crashes. However, I've sat and watched a number of cars do the same thing. So I told you I couldn't do it.
Yeah, what are you doing?
So my suggestion would be to either put the delineators there so that you're forced into Lidl, or to just turn it into one long right turn lane like exists further west at Roorstown Road and Turkey Hill.
Well, Chief, Cindy and I had a pre-meeting meeting about this, and it's serendipitous, but the township did reach out to Lidl to request their 6-month post-development traffic study. And due to the complaints and this issue, I notified Chris Bauer from McMahon Associates, who was Lidl's traffic engineer, to study this issue and include it in their 6-month post-development traffic study. So we should have some findings and some recommendations from that study within a month or two.
I believe, as I read the one correspondence, the residents of Wheatland Hills, as they try to go west on Columbia Avenue, are finding these cars taking that lane. And there's a problem, and I'm sure we'll get comments. Why don't we invite them now? If there's comments from the audience on this matter, please state your name and address. And
Thank you for the opportunity. Tom Runge, 1733 Wheatland. And yeah, of course, I go out there very often and I see what's going on, and probably guilty of coming down there, getting in that lane too soon. But I think the issue, and I hope if they do the study, will become very clear, and that is almost nobody makes the right turn out of Lidl there. You can even go by and see where everybody's parked along Good Drive and nobody's parked in front. They all use the light at Lowe's. And reason being, if you come out there from Lidl and try and go straight, you've got to fight the people making a right turn on Good, and you've got to get into that middle lane. So I'd venture a guess is to say you're going to see many, many, many cars. If you do a counter coming out and a counter there on the right turn, you're going to see many, many more times cars making a right turn on Good with extremely few people coming out of Lidl to make the right. So seems to me the obvious thing, if you want traffic to move without any potential for accidents there is to either eliminate the right turn coming out from Lidl or just make it one long right turn lane, and that would do a lot to ease some of that backup on Columbia, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Byrne, you have something to say?
I'm Peter Byrne, 1625 Ridgeview Avenue. I'm also here in my capacity as the secretary of the Wheatland Hills Glencoe Community Organization. And it's an issue for the organization. I personally have not seen too much interference from people moving right as they're crossing Eisenhower Boulevard to get into that right turn lane. But we have had a lot of complaints at our board meetings about people jumping into that right turn lane as soon as they passed Eisenhower and having conflicts between people who are trying to do the right thing and wait until they're past the Lidl exit in conflict with people coming up that side. So one of the things we thought about was whether the township could install those flexible stanchions like there are at Orville Road, the northeast corner of Orville and Good. There's those white stanchions in the roadway. Or I'm not sure what the enforcement criteria is, but there are signs, you may have seen them earlier, that say right lane must turn right, but they don't say where. And I think some people have said, well, I am going to turn right. I'm turning right at Good Drive. So whether those signs can be modified to include must turn right into Lidl, and does that make that an enforceable, are those signs enforceable? Is that a police matter if somebody does not turn right? Not that you'd sit there all day and watch for it, but.
It would make it would be hard to enforce that based on time. It's legal, but in reality, it would be hard for police officers to sit somewhere to be able to enforce that.
Yeah. It's just that we kind of clear up any misunderstandings that where must I turn right? So, okay, those were our suggestions. Thank you.
Only in the event of an accident, then there would come up the question of whether someone didn't obey the sign. I heard Mr. Beck say that Lidl is going to do a 6 months, has an obligation to do a 6 months traffic follow-up. And so I think it might be appropriate to see the results of that. However, we are aware of this situation now. I'm thinking there's another one similar on Centerville Road coming south off of Marietta, past the bank, past the CVS. There's 2 cuts there before you get to the Giant store. And I will admit, I've taken that lane early on without giving thought to whether anybody, and I could see if anybody wanted to come out of those various cuts. But nonetheless, people do that. If there's a lane there, they're going to use it. So unless we have some kind of physical barrier, I don't think we're going to be able to control it.
I mean, I remember there used to be, if you want to turn right on Good Drive, there's about a 2-car length right turn lane, if it was even that. And it wasn't really a problem because you couldn't even get to it until you were almost up to the intersection. So it almost seems like this is a better situation because you have that nice long right-hand turn lane. It's just not being utilized correctly or as well as it could be maybe. I think it's either, has to be one or the other. Either can't use it at all and you have to turn into Lidl, or turn it into a full right-hand turn lane. And I guess the center lane would have to just be a straight only lane. Like you could only turn from the right lane. But I think right now it's kind of a mixture of both, and I don't think it's working. My wife has a coworker that also said has also mentioned the same problem.
It also seems to me that the design right now encourages stacking going westbound on the, in that middle lane, particularly late in the day when there's a lot of traffic. And I think the design now also creates a problem for someone exiting there onto Columbia Avenue, heading westbound. So I think there's a couple of major issues here. I think some of the comments that both gentlemen made, you know, are logical about some possible solutions. But, you know, I think at this point, we wait for the traffic study and then move forward at that point.
I was under the impression from the correspondence that there was a problem at Eisenhower. And if that is not the case, or a serious problem, let's say, then it would seem the right turn from Lidl is the issue. And possibly Lidl needs to change that to right turn only into and not exiting. So we'll look for the traffic report from Lidl. And we've discussed that sufficiently, I believe, for the moment. Parking ordinance amendments, recommendations to the Board of Supervisors.
Our parking ordinance has a variety of prohibitions, section. I don't know if you have that as an attachment, the parking
Yeah.
ordinance
We do, yeah.
section. There's one section in there specifically that makes it illegal to park a vehicle over 5,000 pounds in residential.
Truck.
Well, yeah, truck. The problem with that recently has been that there are people that have pickup trucks and cargo vans or passenger vans that are registered at 6, 7, 8,000 pounds. So they can't park their own cars in front of their house. And it's typically isn't a problem until you have a neighbor dispute. So my recommendation would be that a simple edit to the parking ordinance to change the 5,000 pounds to 10,000 pounds.
And I believe it should read vehicle, not truck. That will then take care of the vans also.
Correct.
Okay.
So I can, if you're okay with that, I will, I guess, make an edit, provide it to Cindy for the next meeting. And at that point, if you're okay with it, then we can make that, it should be easy. I wouldn't see any reason not to do it.
Commission?
I'm okay with it. Mhm.
I don't think we need to see it again personally. I mean, I agree with it and it makes total sense, so.
As far as an ordinance goes, I don't know the proper procedure for doing that.
We'd have to get it created, show it to the Board of Supervisors and authorize advertising.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily have to go back to the commission if you want to move it forward.
Yeah, I don't think I would need to see it on the traffic commission again anyway.
And I can make a copy of it and put the edit in and provide it to Cindy, where she can change the numbers herself. But we'll work that out.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be a good thing. And then we have the Wheatland Avenue speed concerns.
And if I may, since I'm standing here, I'll say my piece on this, and I know that these gentlemen want to talk about it as well. But in terms of Wheatland Avenue, we've done studies. I think we've done 3 different studies down there since I've been here, since 2010. We've never been able to substantiate speeds as being a problem. We've never been able to substantiate crashes as being a problem. I know that in the past, there have been requests to put 4-way stops up at most intersections. There have been requests to put speed bumps up, stop lines on the street, reflectors on the stop signs, a number of other things. And the conditions have never warranted that. In the event that anything changed, we tried to do a speed study last month in preparation for this meeting, but I'm not satisfied that the data is correct. It seemed to be skewed, and Perry got a new piece of equipment that we would like to put out. And Perry and I can talk about that offline, but I don't have data that I feel comfortable giving to you today. The data that I would have presented, and it might be in your documents, I think is skewed, but again, it doesn't show a speed issue. Things that just don't make sense on the data. So I don't know if there was a flaw in the system or what happened.
I think there was a question too, whether it was the whole length of Wheatland Avenue in East Hempfield Township, some of which at the east end is I think a narrower cartway and a little steeper inclination and some other factors.
So I think if the gentlemen want to provide some detail based on what they tell us, we'll put the equipment at that location, and then for the next meeting, we'll actually have the better statistics for you to decide moving forward. And that's
Okay.
all that I have on this matter, and hopefully for this
Well-
meeting.
Yeah, well,
Kind of in the middle, I guess you'd say at 1733, but, and I won't say that there's a lot of speeding, but what I've seen personally is extremely excessive, easily double the speed limit, maybe triple. But I think that it seems to be a problem from certain residents that live on the east end that come all the way through, some young kids with a Subaru or motorcycles and whatnot. And they seem to be at least what I've seen, the biggest offenders. And they'll basically use Wheatland like a raceway. And it's disappointing to hear your police chief say that, stop signs aren't warranted by PennDOT until something happens, because as you know, there's no sidewalks and it's a pretty quiet neighborhood other than that. And there are a lot of kids and dogs and bikes and everything. And so it's a potential for a problem, but I don't think it's that many people, but like I said, I think it's a few and it is quite excessive. So, thanks.
Again, Pete Byrne, 1625 Ridgeview, and my backyard fronts on Wheatland. And our observation has been that the centers are mostly residents of the neighborhood. I don't think any Columbia Avenue traffic comes through there trying to make a shortcut. So we know that it's our own residents. And we have tried through neighborhood communications for many years to get people to slow down, and it falls on deaf eyes. It seems that most of the speeding takes place between Glenbrook, the end of Glenbrook Drive, going east on Wheatland past Yale. It's downhill, so they come swooping down that hill and make the uncontrolled right turn on the Cornell Avenue, go up, make a left on Ridgeview down to Conestoga, out to the traffic light at Conestoga and Columbia Avenue. That's the primary route for most people to get out of the west end, and especially the Glenbrook side, the north end of the development, if you're trying to go east. You don't want to try to get out at Yale, at the light at Yale, or any place else to go east. That's a problem. Looking at recommendations, we understand the issues about stop signs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I have in the past seen one of these radar operated "your speed is" signs on Farmingdale Road, around where the park is. And I did see the speed bump on Orville Road, and we were wondering whether, if that's a township-owned speed control monitor, whether you could locate it on Wheatland Avenue for a period of time just to make people aware of what they're doing. And also if you could consider perhaps a 3-season bolt-down speed bump near Yale Avenue, so you get them before they try to escape onto Yale, and then pick it up in the wintertime so that the plow guys don't have a problem with it. That might go some way to reducing some of the speed. The issue, of course, is children playing, people walking their dogs. There's no sidewalks in Wheatland Hills, so you're in the cartway with your dog and your wife, and you're walking along, and some kid goes zooming by in his Japanese hot rod, and that's the issue we have. So whatever you could come up with to help us fight that problem would be greatly appreciative. Thank you.
Isn't there more of a safety concern on Cornell and Yale because of the width of cartway, the inclination that, than there is on Wheatland?
Not so much. Most people don't go on to Yale. There is a traffic light at Yale and Columbia, but it's a long light. Most people will come down. There's no stop sign at Cornell and Wheatland. So they'll come down, swoop around and on to Cornell, but now you're going uphill to get to Ridgeview, and there's a stop sign at Ridgeview. So that kind of tends to slow people down on Cornell. One thing we have noticed, we don't have any problems with Wilson because of them putting that water line in. With all the traffic that used to use Wilson as to get around the lights on Columbia Avenue, that's all disappeared. Thankfully, they haven't come up to Ridgeview.
Well, we think we've come up with what should be a good solution on Spring Valley by some painting of speeds on roadways. But from the description of these violators that I've heard, I don't think you're going to pay any attention to what's painted on the roadway.
They don't pay attention to the stop signs.
Uh-huh.
And there's an awful lot of California rolling through in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, and it's just the way they are. We even put out, drive like your kids live here, drive like your pets live here signs, and
yeah,
it doesn't do a lot of good, so.
Is there a certain time of the day when this happens?
Going to work in the morning, drive time, once you get past drive time, it's a pretty quiet neighborhood, but in the morning, they're trying to head into Lancaster City, so they're coming down there, and then in the afternoon, you get the kids coming, once they get out of school, those that drive.
And Chief, all of those roads would be 25 miles per hour, right? Yeah.
I noticed the 85th percentile in 2016 was 23 miles per hour, and the most recent was 34. Is that what you're saying? You think some of the data's a little bit off? Or it sounds like from what the residents are saying, maybe it's not off.
No, I think that what's going on there, what we're seeing is that the average speeds and the 85th percentile speeds are what they should be, but there's outliers.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us as far as. So with some of the information that I got today, we have those speed radar signs, but the ones that we have, we can only put out at a week at a time because they need to be recharged. The ones that are on Farmingdale Road are solar powered. And we have another set of solar powered ones that they put out occasionally. They get moved around. So we don't have anything that we can put there permanently for the long term, but we can put ours out there for a week or two to kind of warn people. That's Wheatland or Glenbrook?
It's on Wheatland. It usually starts at Glenbrook. By the time they get down to Glenbrook, that's where they're really clipping along. And as you say, it's every once in a while you get some young kid who just all of a sudden zooms up the street in his Subaru or up the street in his Harley. And then, you're never going to catch that one guy. You'll see that one, but it certainly doesn't do anything for the 85th percentile. Yeah, I must commend the chief. I see, because I'm outside with my dogs, I see a lot of times a cruiser just cruising up View Avenue, just stopping, cruising up. It continues up, I guess, to Eisenhower. And they go through pretty regularly. We're happy about that. We really are. So.
It's just hard to identify when you're sitting on your porch, you see them, because I have the same thing in my house. But to match it up with the time of the office, nobody ever does anything in front of it.
Yeah.
And we don't really have any decent times to sit there and essentially fit.
The neighbors will tell you who they don't know who they are, but you can't do anything.
These names, registration numbers, we can make a courtesy phone call. We can't cite them for something that we didn't see, but we can still reach out.
Yeah, all right. I'll make a note of that and tell people to keep their eyes open. All right, thank you.
Okay, so do I understand that we will ask Mr. Madonna to put some speed monitor signs up, collect some more data, and also if the residents can provide us some on-site information, we can deal with that. Okay, any other thoughts? I see heads nodding in affirmative, so thank you. And we'll move on to public comments. In addition to those already received, do we have any? Mrs. Garber?
No, sir, none.
Okay. Well, with that, if there's no other discussion, I would look for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Bennett. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Weaver. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a good evening. We'll go to a Board of Supervisors meeting.
It's a lot of traffic stuff going on.
That was a lot of traffic tonight. And there was 2 or 3 issues that we didn't even talk about that were old business. Spring Valley Road.
Yeah.
um,
Seems like if that 85th percentile is correct, it went up by 11 miles per hour. Years.
That's exactly, I still have the same ones.
Or just in a big hurry, I guess.
Okay.
Columbia Avenue's getting so bad, everybody's.
Ben's room.
Porterville, good. Farmingdale, et
Oh,
cetera.
yes. So, yes, sorry. Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank
Spend
you.
on good
need
drive
it?
projects.
Are we gonna need it?
Oh, yeah. We got plenty of projects we do on good drive.
Okay.
So you could use the grant for your circle, well, you want the residents or the owners to pay for that.
Well, we got,
I will,
our money says it's related to the Good Drive and Farmingdale corridor.
Right.
So I'm looking at from Spring Valley Road all the way down to Columbia. We got projects we can use the high money as seed money for different matching grants that we got, as we go along there. And we're compliant with the agreement. As long as it's
We
on
have the
Good Drive.
process here.
On Good Drive or Farmingdale?
We had to expand the agreement to include Good Drive. Remember that?
Yeah.
So as long as it's on Good Drive, it's legal money that we can spend on the
As
project.
long as we're legal, I figured we have to be, but
Yeah, that's my intent. That's what I was hoping for. That's why we did the MTF, is so that we